Campus to Canton. Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
This one got some age to it. Felix Sharpe, Nicholas Ian Allen, and Chris Moxley. This is the Campus to Canton show, getting you ready this morning in what? Week 11 in college football? 1 week away from the game. 1 week away from the game. We're getting towards the end. If you are playing in Campus to Canton leagues, and hopefully you are, we are in prime playoff season. The playoffs are here on the college side of our Campus to Canton leagues. Of course, we're going to get you ready with the rankings, with your prize picks, plays, and everything that you need for this Saturday. Go ahead and hit that like button so we can get more people in here. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're going to get to all of that. But before we do, and I don't usually like talking about what happened last night, but I think that, of course, Colorado taking just an absolute drubbing to Washington State on the road in Pullman. Deion has been there now. Hadn't been there before. He has been there now. Shedeur knocked out of this game twice. Tried to come back and just couldn't handle it. They end up their third-string quarterback got playing time in this one. Chris Moxley. I don't know how to start this. Just give me a word. Give me a single word to describe Colorado's season.
A single word. I wanted to give you something better than that. You know what? I don't care. I'm not going to abide by these rules. Did you see the SpaceX launch today? They did the second rocket launch, and it went off great. Off the platform, nice. And then it had an unscheduled spontaneous disassembly. That's the Colorado season. Went off great. Now it's spontaneously disassembling.
Spontaneous. Nicholas Ian Allen, give me a word to describe what we saw in Boulder this year.
So I don't know if I can do just a word, but how about a phrase? How about out of gas? Just sort of, really, really started strong, really exciting at the beginning of the year. I thought in a lot of ways really good for college football, just kind of the excitement that they brought. But just over the last month or so, just started running out of gas. And I think we definitely saw that last night that now that bowl eligibility is not on the table, it's just kind of coasting in to the finish line, having run out of gas.
14-56 is the loss, and I think the word. None of you completed the assignment. The word is firework, and they were a firework because they started so incredibly hot, just to fizzle out. I mean, so incredibly hot. Remember? Does anybody remember that there were odds on them winning the national championship this year? That there was the question being thrown out there: who would win, Colorado or the 2019 LSU team? I mean, this is the firework of all fireworks. Of course, the media coverage and Deion Sanders' just presence, either a gravitational pull or the opposite, depending on if you like him or not. I think we need to talk about also whether or not we expect it to get better next year, because we've already seen commits pulling out or decommitting from Colorado, saying they don't know if Coach Prime is going to be there. And Chris, I think that that's a valid concern given what we know about Coach Prime. Whether you like him or you don't like him, there's a little bit of narcissism to his personality, maybe just a little bit, like lots of celebrities. And I don't think that he's going to want to be associated with a team that is this incredibly bad. And 56 to 14, you're starting your third string quarterback. Your third string quarterback throws a pass to himself and then throws an interception on the same play. Yes, that happened last night. Chris, I don't think this is going to get better necessarily. Not substantially. I don't think that they're going to win 7 or 8 games next year. They'll probably be right around that 5 or 6 game range.
6 feels aggressive. 5 might even be aggressive. It's not. Yeah, I just don't understand where they're going to bring in players from. Like, Deion's like, oh, we'll just hit the portal for linemen. Okay, every team in the country is hitting portal for linemen. Like, it's the most sought after position and the hardest to fill. That's your issue, and it's been the issue all season. You don't have the depth to make it through an entire season. Bottom line, and I don't know when it's going to get better. And I'm not sure Colorado has the goods to make it work from an athletics and athletic department standpoint. Like, I don't know that their NIL program and their investment in football is going to be substantial enough to get to where I think the brand wants to be on a national stage. So, I mean, listen, Deion's made this school a lot of money in the last year. I'm not sure how much that's going to play itself into recruiting, but we'll see. I don't know that Deion's going to be there that long, though. I really don't.
The last time I looked, the recruiting was in like the 50 or 60 range. I can check on that and see if that class is doing better. I can't imagine that it is.
63rd.
They just lost their highest ranked recruit. So you got to hope that they're going to hit the transfer portal again, obviously. Nick, if I remember correctly, in the beginning of the season, when they were as hot as they were, you were still showing in your power rankings that they were around that range, around 60, if I remember.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Is it likely that they can make a jump from 60 to somewhere, I don't know, to a respectable range where they'll be competing in the Big 12 next year?
I think it's possible. They're currently 57th in my power rankings. That's about as high as they've been all season. So my thought on it is that it's too early to know what to expect for next year. But I do believe that with Travis Hunter being a true sophomore, with Shedeur Sanders being a true junior, who it sounds like is probably going to come back, that Deion Sanders is going to be there in 2024. Just because, we haven't quite got our Campus to Canton transcript and academic progress tool up and running fully, but I'm skeptical that Shedeur Sanders is able to leave as a grad transfer. So, he wouldn't be eligible in 2024. Hunter wouldn't be eligible in 2024 somewhere else. So I think that Deion is going to be back, but that might be, 2 and done instead of 1 and done, and then looking to move on after there. But I think that it's too early to know what to expect, and I'm a little more optimistic that they will be able to land some big time transfers. I mean, they obviously the record didn't come through as a lot of people thought they would. Didn't get to a bowl game, which a lot of people thought maybe was the most achievable goal. But I do believe that they showed a little bit of proof of concept early on and could get enough people excited or enough, they could go to a few handful of linemen and say, hey, you're what's going to make the difference. And be able to entice enough guys to come on board that they will be. If I were to make a guess right now, I'm thinking Colorado is going to be a top 35 team preseason rankings wise, just because I do think that they are going to continue to elevate the level of talent that's on the roster through the portal.
A1, I see you in the chat. Appreciate you joining us. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. I tell you one place that was not elevated, Chris, and that's College Station, where Jimbo Fisher, we kind of expected this. It just took into this season that he was let go. Big wet fart there on the hire of Jimbo Fisher coming over from Florida State. I don't know, man. Where does Texas A&M go from here? They're in a good position because they continue to recruit well. They continue to have, a big bag of money to give to recruits and give to coaches. If they get the right coach there, I have no idea who that's going to be. There's in my opinion, there's a foundation here. If you think about the old Tony Dungy Buccaneers teams coming in, and the foundation was built, and then it was John Gruden that actually won with those teams, I feel like there could be that kind of transition here because Texas A&M is talented. Texas A&M is extremely talented. They just haven't had the coach to bring it all together, but maybe they will here with their next hire.
Yeah, I think the expectations among Texas A&M fans are kind of out of touch with the reality of what the Texas A&M program has been. Like they expect to be national title contenders. I mean, have they ever won a national championship? I don't. I mean, if they have, it was like more than like 50 years ago, I think. Um, they have the money, they have the resources, they got the oil money. It's a tough place to play or to coach because I think the boosters and there are a lot of influential people making themselves what's the word I'm looking for? Heard to the coach. So it's kind of tough place to play, in my opinion. If you're or win, I shouldn't say play. It's probably an easy place to play.
Nick, I mean, what's your thoughts on Jimbo finally being let go in College Station, and what could be next for Texas A&M?
I mean, I was a little, even though it's been a talking point for years now. At this point, I was still a little bit surprised when it actually happened. I just thought that dollar figure was so big that I was skeptical that they would actually be able to pull the trigger. But hey, if anybody can do it, Texas A&M can, and the goal is to compete for national championships. Even though as Chris mentioned, they haven't done it in a while, but that's where they want to go. They have the resources. They've got every advantage. They can try to pull that together and get the right person in there who's going to lead the program to that national championship, and whoever goes in knows that it's you better be competing for national championships in the next year or two, or we're going to move on again to somebody who can. So it's a tough, pressure packed situation, but it is just for whoever gets that opportunity, life changing, generational changing amounts of money, and better perform.
Chris, one follow-up question here. Of the names that you've heard associated with this job, Dan Campbell being one, they already said that he's not leaving the Detroit Lions. But is there a name that you think makes sense that people need to know could be the next head coach there at Texas A&M?
I think the popular name that you're going to see thrown around that I think is a good hire, that Texas A&M fans think is a terrible hire, is Jeff Traylor, the head coach at UTSA. They beat the crap out of South Florida last night, by the way. In the midst of him interviewing for the job, like it's been confirmed that he was interviewing, I think either the same day or the day before. They just took care of business. He's done a really good job at UTSA. It was a middle of the pack program for their conference, and he's really turned it into like multiple double-digit win seasons. He was an ace recruiter under that Charlie Strong Texas team. So like he had his ties to Texas are very well established. Like he's one of the best recruiters in the state of Texas, in my opinion. He's done so under many different staff. He has many different ties throughout the state to high school coaches. I think he'd be a great hire, to be totally honest. Because if you can handle the recruiting aspect, I think you're going to do pretty well because you have the resources. So if you're a good recruiter and now you have the resources, I think it's going to play itself in. Like I don't think Jimbo was. I thought Jimbo was a really good recruiter. I didn't think that he was like best all time recruiting class, right? Like that money does matter to kids. So yeah, I think that'd be a really interesting name. Chris Kleiman at Kansas State also I think would be a really good hire. There's names. Whoever takes over this program is going to be underwhelming in my opinion to Texas A&M fans, though. Like I think they're going to be disappointed regardless of who it is. They want like Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer's not coming out to coach Texas A&M.
Shout out to shout out to Lars in the chat. Guten Tag from Germany. Hopefully that means hello. Hopefully I didn't use some sort of slur or something like that. Lars, shout out to you. Tracer, I see you in the chat also. Listen, I promise we're going to get to our rankings on the week here in just a second, but there's just one more firing that I want to get to, or potential firing, I should say, is that it's rumored that Chip Kelly could be out of UCLA as soon as this week. As soon as this week, I'm not sure where this came from. Of course, there are implications. There are a couple of fantasy relevant players for this team. Dante Moore being one, a highly highly rated 5-star quarterback from Detroit, Michigan, who could be on the move after this year after he restarted and then he was benched. We really like the 2 running backs and TJ Harden and Carson Steele. Maybe even this week, maybe we'll hear their name during prize picks. And then J. Michael Sturdivant, in my opinion, is a very good wide receiver who they haven't gotten the most out of this year. And then there's a defensive end who's going to be a top 15 pick. Maybe I can get Barnabas to talk about him later on because I can't pronounce his name. There we go. UCLA is going to be an exciting job, Nick, because next year this is a Big Ten team. We're talking about Ohio State and UCLA being an interconference matchup next year. And they are the second team in that large market, but it's still California. You have to think that if Chip Kelly is fired, this is going to be an attractive job for someone, a major Big Ten program.
Yeah, for sure. It's a big job. And this year, I was, again, a little surprised. Maybe I'm just too naive, but I was a little surprised that time ran out for Chip Kelly so fast. I know things got off to a really rough start for him, but, this year was somewhat expected to take a little bit of a step back. They were better earlier in the season than I expected. And then I think maybe that just raised expectations a little too much. And then the quarterback situation obviously hasn't been handled super well. But looking forward, yeah, I agree. The move to the Big Ten is definitely a big deal. I think in some ways it makes the job a little bit tougher, but then it also kind of, puts it up maybe, one small tier higher as far as the level of prestige. And UCLA's got a lot of resources that a lot of other Big Ten teams don't. So I do think that they, will be in position to compete right away or certainly should be. And obviously they're looking to really make a splash. If they do move on from Chip Kelly, you'd have to expect they've got, pretty big name or something like that already that they're looking to pursue.
Chris,
why are you firing Chip Kelly? What better coach are you going to get? Seriously though, Chip Kelly's a great coach. What are you like? And he got Dante Moore.
And he got Dante Moore. For now, he does.
I just don't understand what you wanted for UCLA. You don't have a big fan base. Nobody comes to your games. You have a great coach. I don't get it. What is the expectation for this UCLA program? It should have to go down now. They're not even they're barely upper half Big Ten now. So what kind of coach you getting? You are getting in on the Big Ten media deal, which is great because it's much larger than the Pac-12 media deal. But you're like a 7 to 8 win team in the Big Ten, depending on who you're playing each year. I just don't understand why you'd get rid of Chip Kelly. It just makes no sense to me.
Which job is a better job, Chris? UCLA or Michigan State?
UCLA, because you get to live in Los Angeles and not East Lansing.
East Lansing's cool though. I live there. I lived in Lansing for a little bit.
Would you rather live in East Lansing or Los Angeles?
I'm a little different, so I don't know.
he says from his small town in Vermont. So I think the resources at UCLA are probably comparable enough. There's not to get too far in the weeds, but you have to you have analysts that need to come to the facility every day, and all of those analysts, it's a lot cheaper to live in East Lansing than it is in Los Angeles. And so you can pay more, you can bring on more, you probably have better resources tertiary in the program. Connor Stallions wouldn't be able to afford living in Los Angeles. He could afford living in East Lansing though.
There we go. There's a lot better restaurants than Tropo in Los Angeles. Shout out to the Washington Square area there if you're in Lansing. All right, let's get to these rankings here. Let's go ahead and throw up our quarterback rankings for the week. And if you're still playing on the college side of your Campus to Canton leagues, then congratulations. You are in the playoffs. We're going to help you win this round to get to the championship round next week. And here we go. Of course, Jaden Daniels, who's been lighting it up to get Georgia State today. He projected for over 40 points. Jaden Daniels, of course, LSU trying to get him the Heisman Trophy. So even if this one is getting out of hand, I think that they're still going to get his stats up. Caden Salter at Liberty. They've got UMass. Jalen Milroe. He's also been on a hot streak. What's with these SEC teams scheduling these weak opponents here in Week 11? Alabama gets Chattanooga. Dylan Gabriel, Oklahoma gets BYU. Bo Nix, Oregon gets Arizona State. Caleb Williams, USC and UCLA. The rivalry. Is this the last game for Chip Kelly? Chandler Rogers, North Texas gets Tulsa. Is Zion Webb healthy? Zion Webb, Jacksonville State gets Louisiana Tech. Cameron Ward played last night. Haynes King, Georgia Tech gets Syracuse. E.J. Warner, Chris Moxley, that's your boy. Temple gets UAB. Carson Beck, I can't wait to see this game. On the road, Georgia gets Tennessee. Brady Cook, Missouri and Florida. Preston Stone, SMU, gets Memphis today. Nicholas Ian Allen, any particular guys that you like on this list or even elsewhere in college football this morning?
I was trying to go through and compare my projections and the names that continue to stay high in my rankings that sometimes get bumped down a little bit in the weekly updates on the site aren't going to surprise people. Guys like Drake May and Kyle McClure I still have pretty high, but one name I was surprised not to see is Jordan McLeod, James Madison. Game day on campus today, undefeated James Madison. The fact that program has hit through the transfer portal at the quarterback position back-to-back years with a couple of guys that, expectations were very, very low is really impressive. But McLeod has just been, he's had a massive, last 6 weeks or so. So he's really charged up the rankings. I think App State's a decent matchup for him this week. He's top 10 in my weekly rankings.
Sounds about right.
Chris, anybody in the quarterback position that you like today specifically?
I think our rankings are pretty solid today. I think Caden Salter is going to have a massive, massive game against Liberty, like week winning game. So make sure you're using your lineup. Honestly, I don't have much to nitpick. I don't know if I would play Drake May today. Like if I have better options, I would look elsewhere. Drake May is getting a really good Clemson secondary, and I don't know if I would roll him out, and I don't think I'd roll out Cade Klubnik on the other side either. I think Cade Klubnik's still a little banged up.
Well, I think that there's a chance. We'll talk about that game later, but I think that there's a chance that game is a little bit lower scoring. And so, do you sit Drake May? Do you sit Devontae Walker? Do you take a risk with those guys? I'm wondering who we're starting in that game. All right.
Was anybody real quick? Was anybody starting Hudson Card today against Northwestern? Because he is out for the Boilermakers. That news came out of nowhere. Nobody had that. The spread went from Purdue -3 to Northwestern -2.5. So 5, almost a 5-6 point swing.
There we go. Shout out to Joe. Joe says he started Shedeur Sanders last night. It happens, dog. I'm sorry. You know what's funny is that at one point both Colorado and Washington State were what? Top 20 teams at one point. Now it's just Washington State just got its 6th win. College football is funny in that way. Let's move on here to the running back position. Quinshon Judkins last week, I sat him. He played well last week. Ole Miss gets Louisiana Monroe. Cody Schrader coming off a 200-yard performance last week. Missouri gets Florida. Jay Knott, California gets Stanford. Trey Benson has been getting hot here a little bit late. Florida State gets North Alabama. Again, what is with these major programs scheduling these cupcakes here late in the season? Travion Henderson, another guy's been on a hot streak. Ohio State gets Minnesota. Dylan Johnson, can he replicate his performance from USC a few weeks ago. Washington gets Oregon State. Audric Estime, Notre Dame gets Wake Forest. Bucky Irving, Oregon gets Arizona State. Blake Watson, a name that I've seen on a lot of mock drafts here lately. Memphis gets SMU. Jermaine Brown Jr., who has wide receiver and running back eligibility. UAB gets Temple. Amani Bailey, the transfer from Louisiana Monroe. TCU gets Baylor. Jarquez Hunter, Auburn gets New Mexico State. Omarion Hampton, the leading rusher in the ACC. North Carolina gets Clemson today. George Holani with no Ashton Genty. We may need to check on if Ashton Genty is healthy. Boise State gets Utah State. We're probably starting the wide receivers in that one. And RJ Harvey, they're at UCF. They get Texas Tech. RJ Harvey, one of those guys that you could have gotten in the 15th round of your freshman and supplemental drafts, and he's kind of carrying you here late, getting the work there for UCF. Nicholas Ian Allen, any running backs that you like today or don't like today in particular?
Yeah, well, first of all, on your thought about Ashton Genty, there was a report this morning that he will play today. So not sure, didn't get a whole lot of detail, didn't see any extended, is he going to be back at 100%, but sounds like he is going to be suited up and on the field. A guy who's really high on my rankings this week, one, I was a bit surprised when mine came out, and Jermaine Brown Jr. is actually number one for me this week. He's 10th on the rankings on the site. But top three is Quentin Cooley. And Mox mentioned, that Liberty matchup against UMass, pretty nice today. Cooley has been, really solidified himself as the number one running back there for Liberty. And projected to be in line for a really, really good day today.
Mox.
Yeah, I think our rankings are really solid. This far in the season, I think you get a really good feel of who you want to start and not start. I am closely watching the JT situation because I think he's only going if he's full health, and I think he will be full health. So that knocks down Holani a little bit for me, and I think it makes JT playable. So that's my read on that situation. I think it's an interesting situation. Would y'all play CJ Baxter this week? Texas gets Iowa State.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so too, especially if you're in a bind. I mean, I think that so is it just going to be CJ Baxter, or are they going to split the reps between Savion Red, Jadon Blue, CJ Baxter? CJ Baxter is the only one who really profiles of that group as, a bell cow. And if you look at the spring game where Jonathan Brooks was out, CJ Baxter was the only running back running with the run ones before he gave way to those other backs. Now, Jadon Blue has three down skill set, but I think, on first and second down, you should probably expect to see a lot of CJ Baxter.
From someone who has the inside at the Boise State program, they said they would not advise playing Ashton Genty today. So, just this person's well sourced for what it's worth.
All right. I think I know who you're talking to too, Chris Moxley. All right, let's bring up the wide receivers here to get you ready for this Week 11, your playoff matchups in your Campus to Canton leagues. Malik Neighbors is number one. He's been on a tear. Drake Stoops, Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr., two juniors back-to-back. C.J. Daniels, Liberty has UMass today. Tez Johnson, Chris Moxley, your boy, one of the more athletic pound-for-pound wide receivers in the country. Oregon gets Arizona State. We got two Oregon wide receivers here back-to-back in Tez Johnson and Troy Franklin. Joey Hobart, Texas State, gets Arkansas State. Savion Williams, they're at TCU. They get Baylor. Jalen McMillan. And we got to remember, is Jalen McMillan healthy? We got to consider if he's healthy. I'm not exactly sure. So you might want to skip over Jalen McMillan. Taj Washington, a guy who can always catch a long touchdown. USC gets UCLA today. Lincoln Victor, if you started him last night, you are probably okay with his performance of getting a rushing touchdown in that one. Keon Coleman, Florida State, gets North Alabama. Reggie Brown, James Madison gets Appalachian State. Chris, any particular players, wide receivers that you like today?
I know we're going to talk about him later, so I'll hold off on the Jalen McMillan conversation, but I don't know how confident I am in playing Tez Johnson. I mean, I talked about Drake May earlier. I don't know. That situation is basically Tez Johnson and nobody else. So there's that. That's a question in the chat. Where does Ted McMillan rank? I don't have them in front of me, but I mean, I would play him today for sure. I think the Arizona team is going to be able to throw on Utah. The secondary at Utah is fine. I think it's pretty banged up though, if I remember correct. Is that true, Nick?
Utah, I mean, they're banged up all over the place.
That's true.
Yeah. I've got McMillan 30th for the week in my
prediction. And we've got him, the projections at the site have him at 37. So we're in a similar range there. By the way, you can get these projections, Nick's depth charts for 133 FBS teams and a whole lot more, team profiles at campustocant.com. Go ahead and check out the site if you haven't already. D-Matt, Jim, Tracer, I see you all in the chat. Thank you for joining us this morning. Nick, any wide receivers that you like in particular today?
A couple that jumped out to me, a couple of Sunbelt receivers, and I mentioned Jordan McLeod among the quarterbacks. His top target recently has been Elijah Surratt, really come on in the last few weeks as we've seen McLeod jump up. I've got Surratt coming in at number 16 this week. So if we filter out a few of the guys who played already, would probably sneak into that top 14. And then Caleb Hood at Georgia Southern. We thought it was going to be a two-man, go-to duo there with Burgess and Hood. They've had a third kind of jump up into that group, but Hood has consistently been, I think, the most consistent. And Georgia Southern's a team that my numbers really, really like this week against Old Dominion, and Hood is 11th for the week, top 10 if you take out Victor and Cephas, who already played.
We got a question in the chat. Kevin Concepcion at NC State or Keandre Lambert-Smith at Penn State. That's a tough one because, NC State, MJ Morris decided to redshirt for the remainder of the year. They're bringing back in Brennan Armstrong, but Robert Anai is still there, and we kind of want to have Robert Anai's the guy that he's targeting in his offense. And not only are they targeting Kevin Concepcion, they're also giving him carries out of the backfield. Chris, Nick, do you guys have an opinion here between the NC State true freshman wide receiver or Drew Aller's deep threat and Keandre Lambert-Smith?
I think I would go Lambert-Smith. I think it's a tough matchup for NC State. They're on the road at Virginia Tech, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I mean, on the road at Virginia Tech's kind of a tough place to play. Ender Sandman starts going, and it can get a little funky. So I mean, I'd probably go Lambert-Smith. I mean, I like the matchup. I don't think Rutgers secondary is going to be able to out-athlete Lambert-Smith. They just play hard, so that's my read. I don't know. I just have never really bought in on Concepcion and wanting to start him weekly because I feel like the ceiling is so the floor is potentially so low each week. It just scares me starting him.
I mean, I've had him rostered in a lot of places. I'm not starting him anywhere. I do like the talent, especially when a true freshman is doing it.
Yeah, really good player.
Yeah, really good player. Nick?
I'd lead Concepcion. There's a pretty big gap in projections. Concepcion's top 50 and Lambert-Smith is outside the top 120 or 115 for me weekly. Rutgers is legitimately good defensively. And I haven't been impressed, with the level of production that we've seen from Aller recently. So I understand that it's a tough spot for NC State and, technically a backup quarterback, but I think I'd lean Concepcion personally.
I'll tell you this, D-Matt, I would expect Concepcion to out-touch Keandre Lambert-Smith. The thing is just, does Keandre Lambert-Smith get the touchdown or something like that? All right, let's go to the
6 for 37 or 3 for 90 and 1.
Or one, 1 for 37 and 1. All right, let's go to the tight end rankings here. Our tight end rankings, and of course, all of our projections available at campus2canton.com. I expect to see more of you next offseason here in the chat, asking start-sit questions. Brock Bowers is number one, coming back from that tightrope surgery. Let's see if he's healthy. Cade Stover, Bryson Nesbitt, Zach Horton, Terrence Ferguson, Rivaldo Fairweather. Rivaldo Fairweather is somebody I need to add to my rankings. Jake Brenningstool at Clemson. Justin Jolly at Connecticut, Drake Dabney, Dallin Holker, who's getting that Senior Bowl hype, Sean Brown, Jacksonville State gets Louisiana Tech, David Martin Robinson, Chris Your boy at Temple, Jack Veiling at Oregon State. Could he be on the receiving end of a DJ Uiagalelei touchdown today? Alex Bowman at Tulane and Ben Sinnott at Kansas State. Those are our tight ends, and of course, you can get more rankings at the website. Mox, you're the tight end guy, so I feel like I should throw this one to you first.
Yeah, I mean, tight end's a wasteland currently. It's really, really tough to get anything or like reliable production out of anybody. But I mean, I think you can get out of Brock Bowers today. I'm totally fine starting him. I think he's healthy. If you're in a pinch, you need a tight end that's not on that list. I gave him out last week too, and I think you were happy with it. Jordan Smith, tight end 2 at Temple. He had 7 targets last week. Whenever EJ Warner is playing, like he looks to Smith a lot, and I expect this game against UAB to be a shootout. So I think Jordan Smith should be ranked.
I dare you to find a show on college football pregame show this morning that talks to you about the tight end 2 at Temple. I'll give you all day. You can DM me at Sharpe Review on Twitter. Nicholas and Allen, any tight ends that you like in particular this morning?
There are a few who are outside the top 15 on the list that we showed that are top 10 for me. Colson Loveland, I think that the high end upside is there. Anthony Lamphere at Memphis. It's been a little hit or miss. And then Cade Stover, Ohio State, going up against Minnesota today. Seems like he's back and fully healthy. So I think that we'll see him, back among the top 10 options moving forward.
We had a question in the chat. JT Sanders or Arliss Boardingham? I think I lead Boardingham.
So I love Arliss Boardingham, the player, because of what he can do after the catch and how they get him involved. And if you look at his athletic profile, he has a great athletic. Not that Sanders doesn't have a great athletic profile, but Boardingham, according to RA Analytics, I think he was one of the more athletic players in the class, in his freshman class. Now, he missed all of last season with it. I don't know if it was injury or a red shirt, but he's back and he's been involved. I am actually starting Arliss Boardingham here in the playoffs, so I'm going to lean Boardingham here myself.
Yeah, I think so too. The strength of the Missouri team is the front 7, so I think that's a fine matchup. And I don't know what to expect of Texas and Iowa State today. And Sanders has not been as good as I would like him to be for the year. So I would go Boardingham.
I'm not used to this. I'm not used to disagreeing on like everything. But my numbers.
Usually it's me who's on the island.
And I do lean heavily on my projections, and they've been a little slow on Boardingham. Admittedly, and they probably, kept Sanders a little too high, to be quite honest. But I have Sanders projected a good bit higher.
There you go. All right. Did you guys know that Better Sports is gaming college football? You can try it tonight on the BetterCast app. Play our free contest during the Washington at Oregon State game tonight at 7:30. Watch the game, chat with fans, and test your knowledge of college football to win tickets to purchase authentic sports merchandise. Pre-game questions are live now. Trivia questions live now. Download the free BetterCast app and answer them. Now available in the Apple app and Google Play stores. No purchase necessary. Always play free. There are some pregame questions, Chris and Nick, like DJ Uiagalelei, over or under 242.5 passing yards. You guys got to take on that one? Give me your gut. Give me your gut reaction, Nick. I dare you. Give me your gut reaction.
Can't do it. I don't trust my gut. Let's see. I have Uiagalelei at 233.71 today. So where is that?
Taking the under. Mox, let me give you this one. Michael Penix Jr., over or under 318.5 passing yards. Now, he's been a little shaky here the last couple of weeks.
I got to go over. Oregon State secondary isn't very good.
I've got 320. So right there.
Over. Let's go, baby.
Going over. Nick's the one actually setting the lines for these things. the actual lines on Prize Picks and everything like that, Nick is setting them. All right, we're going to go to break here. When we come back, we'll get to Prize Picks. We'll get to start sits. We'll get to all of that. It's Nicholas Ian Allen, Chris Moxley, Felix Sharpe. This is Campus to Canton.
It's college football game day, and we're getting you ready for all the action on Campus to Canton.
I like to eat my feelings. So when I'm like super sad, single serving pint sizes of Ben and Jerry's, I just start shoveling that in, and it makes me feel bigger and better. But so let's eat our feelings here. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk football players, food. We're gonna pair them up. Who is represented by what food? All right. I want to just shout out Hal Alexander in there for CMC, Christian McCaffrey, is Rocky Road ice cream. A little bit of everything.
Yeah,
does it?
Going out.
I like it, man. You know it. I love me some Rocky Road ice cream. Bijan Robinson prime rib. You know what? Bijan Robinson prime rib with a baked potato and some cream spinach on the side. That's what I'm talking about. That is the King's dinner. And Bijan Robinson, I don't care if the dude from The Athletic says only 301, touches. You know what? In honor of Card Sharks, I'm going to say, guys, that I think that number is going to be a little bit higher there for Bijan Robinson. So get your knife, get your fork, you got your steak, you got your Bijan.
Yeah, that's what's up. You're on death row, and they say you get one last meal, and you just say Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. Love it.
I got to jump in on one real quick because Mr. Scamper said Kareem Hunt is candy corn, and I actually had a player, Tyler Boyd, was going to be candy corn for me, and basically it's that nobody likes it, but it's always there. It's always there, and somebody always puts their hand in and grabs some and has some, and they're like, well, and afterwards they're like, why did I eat that? That's Tyler Boyd. He always gets drafted, and he's just kind of there, and nobody knows why. Nobody knows why they take him. Nobody knows where it comes from. Where does the candy corn even come from? Like, it's just there. It's just there.
Moxley, this is Campus to Canton, brought to you by Better Sports this morning. Actually, this is the Tailgate. I didn't even say the name. This is officially the Tailgate, our morning pregame show. We will be with you next week, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're getting so close to 2,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Chris and Nick, I want you to give me the starting lineup that you have in one of your favorite playoff teams, because I'm sure you guys made the playoffs in all of your leagues this year. I'll start with mine. This is my starting lineup today. Austin Reed, quarterback at Western Kentucky. Donovan Smith, the Texas Tech transfer who's now at Houston. He's my second starting quarterback. R.J. Harvey at UCF. Quinshon Judkins at Ole Miss. Jermaine Brown Jr., I have him starting in a wide receiver slot for me. LeJontay Wester, who's been scoring 26 points per game there at Florida Atlantic. I have him at a wide receiver spot. And the aforementioned Arliss Boardingham, I have him in my tight end starting spot. By the way, Arliss Boardingham athletic comps, if you go to campus2canton.com, they include Tommy Tremble, was a very athletic wide receiver in the 2021 draft class, still with the Carolina Panthers. And then Dallas Clark, I think soon to be Hall of Fame tight end, Dallas Clark included in his athletic measurables. So I got Artis Boardingham in my tight end. Penny Boone, who started earlier this season. Detroit Kings stand up. Started Penny Boone earlier there at Toledo. Keon Coleman, I have him in a flex there for Florida State. Terrell Vaughn at Washington State. Can Cooper Lagat, can he get him the rock today? And then Lincoln Victor last night got me that rushing touchdown. So that's one of my starting lineups. Chris, you want to give me one of yours?
Yeah. Let's see. I had a bad year in CFF this year, for what it's worth. I made a lot of bad flag plants. I made some good ones, made some bad ones. Was not my best season, for sure. But this lineup's still going good. I like this one a lot. Dylan Gabriel, Oklahoma goes to BYU today. Bo Nix gets Arizona State. Frank Gore Jr., who had a monster week last week, they go against Mississippi State, but I think they can kind of keep it close. Malik Sherrod against New Mexico. He's really come on as the RB1 at Fresno now that he is healthier. Joshua Cephas went last night for me, had a nice game. Caleb Hood, Georgia Southern's own. They are going to be in probably a shootout today against Old Dominion. Excited to watch that game. Luke McCaffrey at Rice. JT Daniels is going to play this week, it sounds like. So I'm happy to roll him out against Charlotte. Terrell Vaughn as well. I really like that matchup with Boise. Think that could be an interesting game, and I think that's a game that Utah State is live in, actually. Bryson Nesbitt, who has kind of turned into the wide receiver 2 or the second option at tight end for Drake May at North Carolina. They get Clemson, but I mean, I don't really have a better tight end on this roster, so going to roll with Nesbitt. Elijah Badger, Arizona State gets Oregon on the other side of that Bo Nix game. And I am forced to start Jalen McMillan in this league. I don't really have a better option. I was too slow to on Tuesday night to put in Say Bangura, and that wouldn't have mattered anyway because he had 126 yards and no touchdowns. So that's that lineup. Oh, and I got Trayshawn Warden, my final flex spot. I think that they could really score on Kansas today. Kansas defense isn't very good.
Nick, you got a lineup to give the people here?
Yeah, so I basically have one good dynasty team. Mox said he didn't have a great CFF year on some flag plants. I'm pretty sure that like 9 out of my top 10 favorite players that I drafted the most coming into the year did not pan out. So I've got one good team. It's undefeated, but I'm vulnerable this week, I think. 3-quarterback league. I've got Michael Penix, Caden Salter, and Byron Brown, who didn't have the greatest game last night against UTSA. But I've got some decisions to make at the running back position. I do have LaDainian Webb, South Alabama, penciled in. And then I'm going to have to kind of decide. I've got Quentin Cooley penciled in as well. But I'm going to be deciding. We'll talk about this, I think, a little bit in start sits. Marcus Carroll against LSU, Georgia State running back. Harrison Whaley coming off a tough week last week. He gets Hawaii. And then currently on my bench in competition for that spot, I've got Phil Maffa, who I think could potentially be useful this week, but probably leaning against him. I'm considering Jamal Haynes, Georgia Tech running back against Syracuse. So see if he will fit into that group. But at wide receiver, I've got Marvin Harrison Jr., Roma Dunza, Jalen Polk. I do also have Jalen McMillan, but I'm probably going to sit him just to be safe. Did have Ontario Brown go and had a nice, 3 quarters before going down earlier in the week. Lincoln Victor is also already gone. Caleb Hood as well. And then 2 tight ends. I've got Bryson Nesbitt and currently Jake Brenningstool, Clemson tight end.
There we go. Those are our lineups here today. I want to get to starts and sits here in a second. But Chris, can I ask, we haven't talked about Washington. And I mean, we'll talk about them a little bit later. Anytime I see a playoff projection, it does not include Washington. Is that because folks are just projecting them to lose the Pac-12 championship and to Oregon, and therefore they're going to be out of the playoff?
I mean, they're dogs today, or it's close to a pick. Money's coming out of Washington, actually. So they're projected to lose today, according to some. And I think Oregon's a better team than they are, so I understand it. I probably put Oregon -3.
They beat Oregon, Nick. Though they beat Oregon, and they're undefeated. And
Oklahoma beat Texas, though, and I would still pick Texas probably at a touchdown.
How about Alabama versus Texas? There was some news or some talk this week on how would that game. No, I agree. So I am when it comes to playoff conversations, I'm very much in the camp of most deserving versus quote unquote best. So right now, if the season ended today, I would absolutely say Washington should get in over Oregon because they beat them. However, if we're looking at underlying numbers and things like that, for example, Oregon is number 3 in my power rankings. Washington is number 8. So I would have Oregon favored on a neutral field, which they will be playing in a neutral field if they meet again in the Pac-12 championship. And this matchup today for Washington is tough on the road in Corvallis. It's just a really, really difficult place to play. Washington has looked quite vulnerable in the past. Last week, they had a 34% post-game win expectancy number, according to collegefootballdata.com, against Utah. They have just been far from dominant in the month of October. A lot of teams, who are in this playoff conversation, you're getting post-game win expectancy numbers over 90 or 100 in a lot of cases. Washington was 59% against Oregon, 61% against Arizona State, 73% against Stanford. So they've been very, very vulnerable, and perhaps their luck's going to run out at some point over the next 3 weeks, I think is what a lot of people are expecting. And I tend to agree a little bit.
Go ahead, Chris.
So there's FanDuel does a hypothetical line. So if Washington and Oregon both make the Pac-12 championship, they set that number at 7 for Oregon. I think that's a little too big for me. But I don't necessarily disagree that Oregon should be favored by 3.5, 4.
I have Oregon favored by 3.
Yeah.
The disdain and disrespect that this community has for Michael Penix Jr., who is undefeated on the season.
That's not the issue. The issue is their defense is horrible.
Oh, actually, I forgot to adjust for neutral field. I would have Oregon favored by 5.5.
There you go.
There you go. They did have that scare against Arizona State where they needed a pick 6 to kind of save them. Listen, I get it, but they're still undefeated. They've got Oregon State and Washington State left here before the Pac-12 championship. That's going to be a good game today. Good game today. Good storylines in that game. I mean, offensively, DJ Uiagalelei, Damian Martinez, Hayden Childs, and then, of course, on the Washington side, all the guys that we've talked about. We've got 2 wide receivers who've been projected in the first round. At some point this year, Jalen McMillan has been hurt, but it's going to be – the Pac-12 is excellent this year. The Pac-12 has been excellent this year, and Colorado's been a small part of that. So, all right, let's get to starts and sits here. Nick, who are you starting and sitting today? All right,
so I mentioned it. I'm in need of help. Last week I asked a question. It's nobody's fault, but we collectively made the wrong decision. I technically put
who pressed the submit button and failed.
That's what I was about to say. Good point. But hopefully, collectively, we'll get it right this time. I'm currently penciling in Carroll versus LSU. He projects about a half point better for me compared to Haynes against Syracuse. And like 5 points better than Nate Noel against James Madison today.
Jamal,
but you think Haynes?
Yeah, I do. He was great against Clemson. He was great against Virginia the last 2 weeks. I mean, I just cannot in my heart justify starting a Sun Belt running back against an SEC team. I just can't do it. I've
Even
seen a
if
lot
that
of-
SEC team's one of the worst defenses in the country.
Oh, their secondary is the problem, not really the front.
All right, how about this is a question, and I think I have my answer on here. Is Harrison Whaley an automatic start against Hawaii with that group?
I think so.
It was rough last
right?
week, and he hasn't. Well, I was going to say I'm not sure he's 100%, but that's a decent matchup.
It is. I think I would roll him.
Okay.
Hawaii's
By the way, LSU ranks 131st in CFB Winning Edge rushing defensive team performance this year.
maybe I need to go back and look at that number.
Just
Did you say 135th? What number did
131st. 131st.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, what two extra teams?
Dartmouth and Princeton, obviously.
Right.
They are in you do have a Ivy League.
We do have Ivy League team profiles. But yeah, okay, all right. But my sit, and I mentioned I ran through that team, and I'm in a fairly fortunate position. I am sitting Jalen McMillan. There have been reports out there that he's starting. There have been reports for all week. Oh, he's going to see a lot more playing time this week. I don't trust it, and so I am fortunate enough, and I think most of us in this situation, if you're in a semifinal, you probably have options that you trust a little bit more than Jalen McMillan. So I'm sitting him today.
Yeah, he's been a hot topic of conversation.
Yeah, I agree that it's the playoffs. You can't just put him into the lineup. You have no idea what to expect. So. Mox, who do you got today?
I'm just saying, keep the faith. Ignore the result last week. It was a funky game. Roll out Ollie Gordon. Don't even think twice about it. Don't even think twice about it. They got Houston. Houston, this is a great matchup. His DraftKings line is set at like 137. Last week against UCF was a tough game. He got a little banged up. The weather was terrible. The game script immediately got out of hand. Very weird situation. I would just honestly ignore the result and roll with Ollie Gordon. Just don't even think it, overthink it. And then this player's hurt. I'm not positive he's going to play today, but I don't think you can start Kyle Monangai, Rutgers running back against Penn State. He's been good this week, and he actually played well against Ohio State, but I don't know that I would look to start him. Injury plus the Penn State front is pretty good. Rutgers does not have the offensive line that Michigan did when Michigan was able to run over Penn State. So
we have a question from Jim here in the chat. He asked to pick one: Noah Smith at Sam Houston, Kamani Vidal, or Jalen White, Georgia Southern. Chris, Nick, any take on those three?
I think I'll go Vidal.
I think I would go Vidal too. He's top 25 for me this week in the running back rankings. Although White is actually projected slightly higher, is 18th for the week. So I think either one of those I would feel pretty good about. Numbers wise, I guess I would go with White.
Yeah, I think those are your top two.
I'll look up our projections here in a second on those three and see what who our projections have ranked higher. For my start, hey, I think I'm going to start Kendall Milton. Consider starting Kendall Milton this week. They play Tennessee.
This is the week he's going to break out. This is it.
Well, he broke out last week. He broke out last week. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
like
yeah.
he finally had a breakout game, and maybe they keep
Only
the
took
hot
50
hand going here. Tennessee is actually 39th in total defense, 24th in rushing defense. But you look at what they gave up last week. They gave up 255 yards on the ground to Cody Schrader. Georgia's on the road. I think on the road you want to control the clock. It makes sense for Kendall Milton got hot last week. I think he had like 26 fantasy points. I think he had 120 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, 1 catch for 11 yards. maybe we keep Kendall Milton, who we've been waiting for to break out. Maybe he rolls today for Georgia. That's the hard one. I think the easy one is I think I'm starting both backs for UCLA, both TJ Harden and Carson Steele. I think, TJ Harden, we can see get 80 yards and a touchdown. USC has been giving up a lot of rushing yards. Of course, Dylan Johnson had the 200-yard rushing performance here a couple of weeks ago. And UCLA wants to run the ball. I think that USC is not going to stop them. And I would start both backs here today. Who I'm sitting – now, I had Xavier Weaver on rosters. I sat Xavier Weaver, the Colorado wide receiver. They're just anticipating that Colorado team would continue to implode and, just didn't want to be attached to Colorado really going into the playoffs.
You should have told me that's how you felt, because I didn't make a play on the Washington State game, and I should have.
Yeah. So I definitely sat Xavier Weaver in one spot. But for today's games, I'm definitely sitting the Illinois backfield. So Reggie Love was healthy last week, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. Caden Fegan got hurt during that game, and so he was down. Doesn't matter. This week they got Iowa, so I am sitting both Reggie Love and Caden Fegan. I'm not starting them against that Iowa defense. And I would, as I mentioned before, I think that there's a chance that this Clemson and UNC game is just a little bit lower scoring than what we've seen from NC State here recently. Of course, last season, Drake May having some trouble with NC State. Nate Wiggins? Nate Wiggins, the corner there for Clemson, has been projected in the first round. That's going to be an interesting matchup between he and Devontae Walker. So, lower scoring, less passing attempts. Devontae Walker has been hot. I think I'm sitting Devontae Walker. I just don't want to risk starting Tez in what might be a defensive game today. So that's who I am starting and sitting. Jared says, Jared, of course, the Georgia fan here in the chat, he said, as the Kendall Milton stand, do not rely on Milton in the playoffs. So Jared disagrees with me there.
One more sit. If you were here earlier, then you probably caught this. But if you're just hopping on the last 30 minutes or so, I would not start Ashton Jeanty today. He sounds very limited.
Ashton Jeanty seems to be healthy, but as Chris, he's not healthy. Well, he's healthy enough to play. He's going to play, but we're saying do not start him.
Because he's not totally healthy.
He might be active, but do not start him. So
I think he's going to run for like 200 yards, and I'm like an idiot today.
That's right. But they seem to love George Halani. So
George Halani is –
George Halani was one of my draft picks in my first C2C leagues back in 2020. So he's been around a long time.
Ashton Jeanty, 5 touches, 3 touchdowns.
There we go. All right, we're going to go to break here. When we come back, we'll get you set up with your prize pick plays for this Saturday. It's Nick Alisi and Allen, Chris Moxley, Felix Sharpe. This is the Tailgate, brought to you by Campus Can and Better Sports.
From the hometown breeze, Zach Parise.
That is a very nice card, and that's one I'll probably have to organize a little trade ski with you, because I would actually like that card.
You got downtown Newark in the background. I mean, Newark has never looked so good.
No, it is not.
We'll put that back up on the screen. I just want to have a penny sleeve ready, and yes, we can absolutely work out a little trade ski for that, because that belongs in a Devil fans collection right there.
I'll trade you the Braden Schneider rookie card for it.
Done.
There we go. The first card-for-card trade on Rip and Riff history. And it was that easy.
It was that easy. That's because, because neither one of us are jerks. And it's the same thing when we try and do fantasy trades. Like, we don't try and screw each other. We have conversations. If there's a fit, there's a fit. If it's not, it's not. We don't try and, take the other one over the barrel. So there you go. In a penny sleeve. Hometown hero, Zach Parise. He was among the league's most productive goal scorers in 06-07 and followed up with a terrific regular season with an even more impressive postseason. And then they talk about what he did in the first round series against Tampa Bay that year. So that's off to the side for you.
That's true. And if this is it for his career, he had a hell of a career.
He did.
Hopefully he comes back one more year with the Islanders, but if he doesn't, hell of a run.
Promised Jim that I would look up how our projections have the 3 players that he asked about. All right, so Kamani Vidal is our 184th ranked player, and Noah Smith is at 248, and I'm still looking for where we have Jalen White. Jalen White is our 161st ranked player. So, there you go. There you go. All right, it's Felix Sharpe, Nicholas Ian Allen, Chris Moxley. This is the Tailgate, getting you ready to start your lineups here this morning in your Campus to Canton leagues. But we are going to go to Prize Picks, promo code C2C for a 100% deposit match. I think that's up to $100, $200. I tried to log in.
$100.
$100. Chris, you want to start and give us your Prize Picks plays for today?
Sure. I mentioned it at the top of the show. I expect Brock Bowers to be pretty much 100% and a big piece of that Georgia offense that goes to Neyland Stadium today. He's the number 1 option when he's healthy, and I think 57.5 is just a little too short for the best tight end in the country and one of the best offensive weapons. John Reese Plumlee over 227.5. This number's gone up. I still like it though. I expect UCF to be kind of in a shootout today against Texas Tech. Texas Tech, I think, is probably going to win this game, but I do see a path to Plumlee going for like 250 and not just running, because I think that he may need to play some catch up, and they'll have to respect his ability to scramble a lot. Third one, Samuel Brown, Houston wide receiver, over 13.5 fantasy points. Matthew Golden's done for the year, and Brown is the wide receiver 1. I think you could play any of his numbers, honestly. Yards, fantasy points, all that. I just went with fantasy points because I think he gets a touchdown today. So easier, I think, to get there. And then finally, Jacob Cowing over 45.5 receiving yards. Another number that I just think is a little too short for Arizona. I like Arizona today. I think they're going to win. The Utah secondary is so-so. So I think that Arizona offense can do some damage, and Cowing is, as the second option there, should have a nice week.
Am I correct in that Prize Picks does not let you play multiple props on the same player? Because there are some players that I like today, hitting a lot of their numbers. So it's unfortunate because you could hit a parlay just on one player if you wanted to today, at least in my opinion. All right, Nicholas and Allen, what are your plays today?
So all of mine are passing yards. I think that's where our projections have been the sharpest so far this year. One that really caught my eye, I didn't expect it, and Mox mentioned Arizona today. When I saw Noah Fafita over 236.5, that made me raise my eyebrow a little bit. Utah is one of those teams that we're just used to being able to really shut down an opponent, and Fafita's solidified that quarterback position, but it's not like he's been lighting up the scoreboard or filling up the stat sheet really. But when I looked at what I've got projected, it is like 290, and so I'm not sure he's going to get there, but that's a big enough a large enough projected edge that I think that there's some value on Noah Fafita going over. Utah, by the way, and this is against 3 of the better passing offenses in the country, but they've allowed 233 or more in 3 of their last 4 games against USC, Oregon, and Washington. And yeah, I just think that those receivers that Fafita's got feel decent about that. Another one where there's a large projected edge to the over, which are usually the ones that I keep in mind for prize picks, just sort of the way our projections work. When we see an over, there's a little more value there. Over 183.5 for Kyron Drones, the Virginia Tech quarterback against NC State. And that NC State defense has been just incredibly difficult to throw against for the last month or so. So nobody's, hit even 183.5 in a while against the Wolfpack. But Drones has been, over 210 in 3 of his last 4 games. And I don't know. I feel like there's a bit of value on that number. So even though it's not, doesn't look great when you look through those NC State recent games, I still think that there's a little bit of value there. And then one that caught my eye, I don't usually pick an under on these, but our projection for Trenton Bourgo, Arizona State quarterback, is under the 178.5. Plus, one thing that our projections don't even really take into account, but Arizona State is the last couple of weeks been getting a lot of other guys snaps at quarterback. Cameron Scatabo, the running back, Jalen Conyers, the tight end, has taken some snaps sometimes. They're doing some just funky stuff on offense to try to get something, to happen. So they are, not just going to let Bourgo's drop back and throw it 30 times. So I think that there is even a little more value to the under 178.5 than even our projections are showing.
I think one question for the offseason is, will Jaden Rashada take a jump in his second year? Aggressive downfield passer. He's got Kenny Dillingham, who really, revitalized Bo Nix NFL draft stock there at Oregon last year. I think I like what Kenny Dillingham is doing. He's got a really good quarterback prospect there. And, why not put the ball up 30, 40 times a game if you're Arizona State, if you have that gunslinger there in the backfield that was supposed to be at Florida and ends up at Arizona State. All right. Nick, I want you to give me your – oh, go ahead.
All right, I was going to say, I think Kenny Dillingham is possibly doing a top 5 coaching job in the country, given what he was dealt at Arizona State. Everything after Herm Edwards and whatnot, and then he's down to like his 7th, 8th, 9th offensive lineman. That team's going to be really good. So we want to be investing in that situation.
I'm optimistic.
Nick, I want you to give me your projections, what your projections say about some of my prize picks plays today. I really like the UCLA backfield to run all over USC today, but I'm taking the backup running back there, TJ Harden. I've got over 53.5 rushing yards. He might be able to get that in one run here today. I'm also taking the over on 0.5 touchdowns or receiving TDs for TJ Harden. I'm taking Carson Steele over 76.5 rushing yards for the starting running back there. And how about this? I really like this one. You got Amarian Hampton and Carson Steele combined for over 160.5 rushing yards. I like that one also. Nicholas Ian Allen, what do the numbers say? What do the numbers say for Carson Steele, TJ Harden, those guys?
All right. So Carson Steele, I'll just read his today projected stat line. 76.15 rushing yards, 0.58 rushing touchdowns, 3.1 receptions for 26 yards. And that's going to come out to, in a 1-point PPR, 17.04 points. For TJ Harden, have him expected to get 8 carries for 57.3 yards, quarter of a touchdown, 1.5 receptions for 17.75 yards, comes out to 12 fantasy points.
Okay, so we got the under there, barely. I told you Nicholas Ian Allen is the one setting these lines.
Yeah,
because
what was the Steele number?
Incredibly close. The hard number was, he said 76.125 or something like that. The line is 76.5. So we got the under by 0.4 tenths of a point.
FanDuel subscribes.
Yeah, sometimes it's not super fun to compare mine to what they've got because
goodness.
They're
very similar.
Is Price Picks subscribed to the C2C winning edge team?
They must be.
Well, so we haven't talked about it, and I don't want to put any thing out there against Prize Picks, but I might be shadow banned. I can't see the college football numbers. They don't exist for me on Prize Picks. So I always have to get screenshots from you guys to so I even know what the numbers are for this show each week.
What's going on, Prize Picks? You're banning the man here, Nicholas Ian Allen. I got two more that I like. I like J.J. McCarthy over 16.5 rushing yards. My thought here, and they get Maryland today, is that I think that with no Jim Harbaugh, let's not make mistakes and get out of here with the win. So we just like how the second half of that Penn State game was. I can see an assistant coach getting his second, head coaching start, saying, let's do what we can do well. Let's not make mistakes. Let's run the football. So keep the ball on the ground, including with J.J. McCarthy. I like over 16.5 rushing yards. And that's why I also like the under of 230.5 passing yards. Again, I think that they play it conservatively because they can. They can just bully you. Why not? So give me the under on J.J. McCarthy's passing yards and the over on his rushing yards. Nick,
do you buy any of the injury rumors?
Like on who? For
J.J. McCarthy?
I didn't realize
he was not listed on the injury report.
Okay. That's good to know because there were some rumors going around on the message boards that he might be a little bit banged up, which he was limping in the Penn State game in the second half, and he threw like one pass. So I don't think it's crazy that he could still be a little hurt, but probably not hurt enough.
Nick, I'm just curious about what the numbers say on J.J. McCarthy today, what his projected stat line is.
So I've got McCarthy projected for 217.78 passing yards, 1.5 touchdowns, 5.6 rush attempts, 21.74 rushing yards, 4-point passing touchdowns, 21.77 points, 6 points, 24.8.
So you see Nick guy has all those fancy numbers. I got my gut, and we're both hitting me over on J.J. McCarthy today.
It's important to take multiple views, so I like it. I like looking at the numbers against some sharp thoughts as well.
There we go. Okay. Are there any other injuries that you're tracking today that we need to let the people know about? We'll go over the rankings here again, but I just want to check and see the injury report. Ashton Jeanty is playing, but we don't expect him to be, at full health. So we're sitting at Ashton Jeanty today.
Ben Bryant is back for Northwestern. I think that's a big addition. I didn't think Brendan Sullivan was very good. Hudson Card is out for Purdue. That's a huge loss. Purdue is also missing their best defensive player. So I think Northwestern is sitting pretty there. Ethan Vasco, the Coastal Carolina quarterback, will not play today. Go Jared Guest, who was originally the quarterback 2 behind McCall. Jake Retzlaff is going to start for BYU today. Not that that really matters to anybody. If you're starting Jake Retzlaff, you're definitely not in the playoffs. So. Evan Stewart looks like he's going to play today. Kyle Monangai, who I brought up earlier, or Monangai, is going to play. Ashton Jeanty is going to go. Think he's going to be limited. And Pete Thamel's reporting Jalen McMillan's going to go and start and play a big role. I want to see it. I really need to see it because I feel like I've been bamboozled by the Jalen McMillan situation one too many times.
All right. Those are and by the way, in the chat, if you are finding some injuries that, folks should know about, please let us know. Go ahead and let us know in the chat. Go ahead. And if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. We're getting closer and closer to 2,000 subscribers. All right. Well, let's bring up the quarterbacks here. Our quarterback rankings. Of course, you would expect to have Jaden Daniels after the season that he's having. He's there at number 1, Caden Salter at Liberty. Jalen Milroe. Remember Jalen Milroe earlier this season, benched for Tyler Buckner and Ty Simpson, and he's just been really, really hot here as of late, including last week against Kentucky. Dylan Gabriel, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Chandler Rogers, Zion Webb, Haynes King, E.J. Warner, Carson Beck, one of my early Heisman shout-outs. Actually, Chris, you were earlier than I was on that one. Brady Cook, Preston Cone, and Cooper Laga at Utah State. Chris, any quarterback that you like in particular this week that the people need to get in their lineups or get out of their lineups?
I really like EJ Warner this week. I have he was not great last week against USF, but I mean this feels like the type of game where EJ Warner throws for 450 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. UAB's defense is not very good, and their offense is actually really neat. Like a very underrated storyline how good this offense has been playing for the Blazers. So I think that game could be a huge shootout. I love EJ Warner this week. And I believe we're gonna have a totally healthy quarterback on the other side, right? I think he's back healthy, Jacob Zeno.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So yeah, I think Jacob Zeno's a starter too. Double's defense is quite bad.
Nick, any quarterbacks that you like in particular this week that you got to get in or get out of your lineups in this playoff week?
Well, one that has been lower in our rankings on the site than our projection, the C2C winning edge projections pretty frequently has been Kyle McCord. But he's coming along and, projects as a top 10 quarterback in my numbers this week. They're a 27.5-point favorite against Minnesota. And yeah, McCord is I think in line for a pretty good day today. So he's somebody that I certainly would suggest. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Jordan McLeod, James Madison, if you believe in, extra motivation, JMU is denied their bowl eligibility this week. Game days on campus, they're going to want to put a really good performance there with a little bit more of a national spotlight. So I like Jordan McLeod a lot today as well.
I am hanging some of my playoff hopes on Donovan Smith today, the former athlete / running back / wide receiver as a recruit and converted to quarterback. He's been averaging 22.4 points per game on the season, just 14 last week, but he's had games of 35, 40, 28. And so I'm hoping that he can get it done on the ground and through the air, even with no Matthew Golden today. So I don't have a better person to start. I don't have a better player to start. So I'm starting Donovan Smith today in a playoff matchup. Let's go over here to the running backs, Will Chudy. Let's go to the running back position. Let's see. Is Quinshawn number one? Yeah, Quinshawn Judkins number one. Ole Miss gets. By the way, Quinshawn last week against Texas A&M. I said to sit him. He had an excellent game. So, Quinshawn Judkins is that dude. We got to start him from here on out. Cody Schrader tore Tennessee to pieces last week. They get Florida today. Travion Henderson, Jay Knott, Trey Benson, Dylan Johnson, Audric Estime, Bucky Irving, Blake Watson, Jermaine Brown, who I have starting in a wide receiver position today, Amani Bailey, Jarquez Hunter, Omarion Hampton, R.J. Harvey. Mox, can Omarion Hampton keep it going today on the road against Clemson?
Yeah, he's probably going to have like 25 carries, so I think you could still start him. This pure volume play at worst. I think it's a tough matchup, but I don't want to be the one sitting a guy who's going to get 20 plus touches.
And Nick, you have Jermaine Brown as the number one running back today. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah. A little bit of a surprise, but there have been some injuries in that backfield for UAB. Think that Brown, who is just good in general and as a pass catcher as well, has some value. He projects number one this week. It's close, but he's at the top of the list. So very, very high on him. And did want to mention somebody that I forgot earlier, Ray Davis today against South Carolina, the Kentucky running back, has already accepted an invite to the East-West Shrine game, which, just as an aside, we are tracking those things in the CFB Winning Edge team profiles as well. We've got a new tab in there that shows you who's declared and what All-Star game they're in line to play in.
There, am I there? Okay, my mute button is stuck a little bit there. UAB always had a running back that I like. It was Spencer Brown, Dwayne McBride, now Jermaine Brown Jr. And Jermaine Brown Jr. has the most versatile skill set of a UAB running back that we've seen here in recent memory. Because usually those guys have like 0 catches on the season, but 12 or 1,300 yards rushing. We might finally, even though Jermaine Brown is an older prospect, I think he's in his 5th or 6th year, we might finally get that UAB running back who has, a legitimate NFL career in Jermaine Brown Jr., given his versatility. All right, let's go to the wide receiver position here. We got Malik Neighbors at number 1. And we got 2 LSU wide receivers here in the top 5, and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake Stoops, C.J. Daniels, Tez Johnson, Troy Franklin, Savion Williams, Jalen McMillan is healthy, but we're not necessarily starting him. Taj Washington, Josh Kelly, Keon Coleman. Nick, any wide receivers that you like in particular today?
So I've got my eye on a couple of Sunbelt guys, Elijah Sherratt and Caleb Hood of James Madison and Georgia Southern, respectively. Just think that this James Madison day today, that they're just in line to put up a lot of points, a big number. And did want to mention, somebody was asking in the chat earlier in a start and sit about Javon Baker, UCF wide receiver, and I just went back and double checked. He's top 25 receiver for me this week, so he definitely would be in the conversation. Ricky White, who is somebody else who was asked about, I believe, in the same question, is a few spots higher, but Javon Baker I've been really impressed with this year as well.
Chris, there was a couple of weeks ago, Tez Johnson was like our number 2 wide receiver overall. You said that didn't make sense. Either you or Alfred said that didn't make sense, and then he went off that day. Now, you you didn't like Tez's placement here today. I mean, elaborate on why. Is it just because he's clearly the number 2 there?
I don't dislike Tez today. Number 6 is a little high. Number 5 is a little high. But, yeah, I mean, I've talked about this all season. Bo Nix and Tez Johnson are literally brothers. Like, they're brothers. There is a connection there. And I don't know that you can get anything stronger than a brother connection. So, yeah, I think that there's that little comfort level between the two that you feel good about. Tez Johnson's adopted, by the way, just to make that clear.
Adopted brother who makes explosive play after explosive play. He might have 3 catches, but 2, 70-yard touchdowns for Tez Johnson today. So maybe you get a high week here for him. Let's go to the tight end position. Brock Bowers is back from the tightrope surgery. Georgia gets Tennessee. Cade Stover, Ohio State, Minnesota. Bryson Nesbitt, as Chris mentioned earlier, has essentially been the number 2 option for Drake May. We got Zach Horton, Terrence Ferguson, Drake Dabney, Ronaldo Fairweather, Jake Brenningstool, Justin Jolly, Dallin Holker, Sean Brown, David Martin Robinson, Jack Veiling. And, that kind of rounds out your tight end position. Chris Moxley, we got to remember Dalvin Smith, Corey Dyches, maybe got to throw those guys who have tight end eligibility in. But any other tight ends that you like today, Chris Moxley?
I'll answer a chat question. I'd rather play Westover over Garrett Miller because Hudson Card's out, and I'm not sure Purdue has a chance to have any sort of a passing offense today. But yes.
All right. Let me see here. I don't know if there's any other takeaways here from this tight end position. Nicholas Ian Allen, any, I don't know that there's any stone to be unturned here. We kind of know what the tight end position is, but any light or context that you want to provide to these rankings today?
So I was really trying to scroll down my numbers and see if anybody's just in a really bad spot at tight end and just needs to grab somebody last second. there are a couple of names who are probably drafted a good bit preseason who've underperformed a bit so far this year, but seem to be coming along, both playing in the Oklahoma BYU game today. Austin Stogner seems to be getting back and productive. And then Isaac Rex, pretty solid as well. So maybe some names that you've given up on, but if you've got an opportunity and are in a pinch, I think either of those guys could be productive today.
There we go. That's the tight end position. We're going to get to break here. But before we do, did you know that we're gamifying college football tonight in the BetterCast app? Play our free contest during the Washington at Oregon State game tonight starting at 7:30 Eastern. Watch the game, chat with fans, and test your college football knowledge to win tickets to purchase authentic sports merchandise. Pre-game questions are now live. Download the BetterCast app and answer them now. No purchase necessary, always free to play, available in the Apple Play and Google Play stores. Here's one of the questions, Chris. Damian Martinez, over or under 103.5 rushing yards? I mean, you don't like Washington's defense, so I'm guessing you're taking the over there, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think the over's the right side.
Total points scored in this one, Nicholas Ian Allen, over or under 62.5? I mean, can Oregon State really score 30 in a game?
So my numbers see a little bit of value on the under. Yeah, so my level of confidence is not as high in that one. Do think that this could end up being a definite shootout. But I have it projected to come in below 60 actually, which is a little surprising.
I gave out the over 62.5 or over 63 actually, and the market moved against me earlier in the week.
Sorry, I did that. My fault.
Yeah,
Washington.
Seriously.
Washington, always a fun game, and we get to see a good one tonight against Oregon State. When we come back, Nicholas Ian Allen and Chris Moxley, they've been talking about Ivy League matchups here in the chat. We're going to talk about those for you guys now. We'll have Nick and Chris's best plays. That's when we come back. This is Felix Sharpe, Nicholas Ian Allen, Chris Moxley. It's the Tailgate, brought to you by Campus to Canton and Better Sports Network.
The Bears have to be one of the most inept franchises of any sport I've ever seen in my entire life. And they share the city with the White Sox, who are also inept. Like, that is how bad the Bears are. I just don't understand how you can go your entire existence and the quarterback that wins you a Super Bowl is Jim McMahon. You couldn't find anybody else.
They don't have a good history with quarterbacks, but they let him be the quarterback for a long time, too.
Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes right there.
Mm-hmm.
And you drafted Mitch Trubisky. They were right there. I there's a lot of pain in being a Falcons fan. The Bears are one of the teams I could argue they might have it worse, and they have a Super Bowl.
And
when the best quarterback in the past 50 years is Jay Cutler, you have a problem.
That's so funny that you just said that. We were talking about Jay Cutler the other day, me and my friend, and I was like, yeah, he was on, because we were watching the Colorado Rockies game against the Giants, and it looked like he was behind the thing. I was, yeah, well, he played for Denver most of his career. We looked it up. Chicago let him be their starting quarterback way too long.
Here's the thing, too, is that Jay Cutler wasn't bad. Like, he was erratic. He wasn't terrible, though.
The poor man's Brett Favre.
I'm taking him over Justin Fields. I'm sorry.
I would.
But Jay Cutler led that team to an NFC title game.
Yeah.
That they lost to Green Bay. But he's gotten farther than anybody else. You want to know who the other starting quarterback was for the Bears in the other Super Bowl appearance they made? It was Rex Grossman. What are we doing out here? It was Rex Grossman and Kyle Orton was the backup. How are you that bad? Bro, oh my God. Listen to the top 5. According to Football Reference, the top 5 greatest Bears quarterbacks of all time. Jay Cutler, number 1.
I can't believe it.
Sid Luckman, who last played in 1950, is number 2. Jim Harbaugh is number 3. Jim McMahon, the Super Bowl winner, is number 4, and he played there for 6 years. And Mitch Trubisky, is number 5 on the list as terms of passing yard go.
Hail to the victors, people. People, hail to the victors. The song of my childhood, the best fight song in all of college football. That's not according to me. That's according to Barnabas. Barnabas is in the background saying it's the best fight song in college football history. No, don't take my word for it. It reminds me, by the way, that Matthew Bruning, a founder here at Campus Canton, has not paid off a bet to sing Hail to the Victors. And he thinks he's going to keep dodging it. Of course, the last Michigan Heisman Trophy winner was one Charles Woodson in 1998, playing the first primary defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. Chris Moxley, who do you got winning the Heisman here this season?
If you asked me right now who I think has the best chance, I think it's Jaden Daniels, and I don't agree with that. That would not be my pick. But just statistical excellence matters, and he's been statistically excellent. I mean, they get who today? Georgia State, so he's going to probably throw for another, or he's probably going to combine for another 600 yards again. I would not go that direction. I don't know if I would go Carson Beck either. I don't know. Michael Penix is up there. Bo Nix deserves.
You guys are just a what have you done for me lately? Michael Penix Jr. has been excellent this season. Like, the fact that he hasn't been on the hot streak here late in the season doesn't really make me forget what he did earlier and in the middle of the season, especially against USC. I mean, give me Michael Penix Jr. I'm not biased.
I'm not sure that the USC is like the game that I would say, oh, look what they did against USC.
Well,
so
what Jaden Daniels get? What game does Jaden Daniels have where he's going to be like, oh, he just, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. So Bo Nix is the favorite. Jaden Daniels is second. Michael Penix is third. Marvin Harrison Jr. is fourth, and Carson Beck is fifth.
Nick, who do you have winning the Heisman? If you had to take it today and the end of the season.
So I understand the love for Jaden Daniels. I think that he is benefiting from the fact that there's not a clear best player on the best team like we've been seeing for a while. And part of that's because there's not really a clear just best team in my opinion. But I think that Penix, if Washington wins out, will win it. But I think Daniels is going to fall off because we're going to see something in next week's games, the final regular season week, from Marvin Harrison Jr. or we're going to see something in the Pac-12 championship game from Bo Nix or something like that. We're going to have a Heisman moment that is going to overshadow Jalen Daniels, and then it will sort of clear things out a little bit that we're like, oh yeah, okay, Washington actually is undefeated, and Michael Penix is the reason why. Or Bo Nix just did this incredible thing, and Oregon won the Pac-12 championship and is going to the playoffs. So Bo Nix solidified it. So that's where I'm leaning. If we continue to have some murkiness, then I think Daniels could be a Lamar Jackson type winner just with the stats. But I think somebody's we haven't seen the Heisman moment yet, and I think we'll see that in the next couple of weeks.
And Jaden Daniels will not be playing in the SEC championship game. So that gives a chance for, Carson Beck and to shine, Michael Penix Jr. shine, Bo Nix to shine in the Pac-12 championship game. All right. I think one of my favorite things on the show is watching Nick and Chris talk about Ivy League line movement here in the chat. And so that's why my favorite segment is probably their best plays, their best picks on the day to help us make some money. So Nick, you want to start us off and give us your best picks here today?
Well, first of all, I was a little confused when you were talking about the game being next week, and I'm seeing some things on Twitter about the College Game Day is going to be at the game next week. The game is this week. Harvard is going to be in New Haven to play Yale, and I'm surprised that Harvard is a 3.5 point underdog. I've got Harvard as an outright favorite, pretty solid outright favorite. So I will add that to my list this week. I am very tempted to go under Columbia Cornell 31.5 today, but can't quite get there. But for the rest of the list, what I've been focusing on for this show are when our 3 different projection models all fall on the same side of a favorite. It's been a pretty good spot for us. We're already off to a 3-0 start this week for the weeknight games. But I see a pretty significant edge in Georgia Southern to cover 5.5 against Old Dominion. 2 of the 3 projection models have Georgia Southern as a double-digit favorite. So think that there's definitely some value there. It's kind of similar, even though my optimism is a little little lower on Texas to be able to cover 7.5 on the road against Iowa State. Iowa State, tough place to play, especially at night. It's kind of one of those spots where you could envision a much more talented Texas team maybe stumbling a little bit and being lucky to get away with a win. But my projection numbers, again, have Texas as a double-digit favorite in a couple of them. I like North Texas on the road to cover 2.5 against Tulsa. That game, I mean, that you're looking for a high-scoring game this week. I think that's definitely the one, and like North Texas to come out in that one. Our numbers have been very good this year when we see value on Ohio State to cover a big number. There's not a whole lot of room here, but all 3 of our projection models do have Ohio State covering 27.5 against Minnesota. I think we're 3-0 in this scenario this year so far, at least 2-0. And then one that I haven't usually pointed these out on the show, but we've had a pretty good run on wrong team favored projections the last couple of weeks. And all 3 of our projection models, we have one that's a stats only model. We have one that's a talent only model. We have one that combines those, as well as coaching history and player ratings, all that good stuff. All 3 of them have NC State favored to win outright as a 2.5 point favorite at Virginia Tech today. So I'll take the NC State money line. Looks like it's between 115 and 125. But think that NC State's going to come out with an outright victory, as will the Harvard Crimson today.
I tend to agree with the Harvard number. I actually make it closer to a pick, but that's a lot of points for Yale. I know they're at home, but I'm not sure Handsome Dan's looking too handsome today.
Well, and it's going to be split 50-50 anyway. It doesn't matter that it's
sure
in New Haven. It's
I do not have a strong feel for the Yale home advantage personally. All right, let's get my head out of the Ivy Leagues. I got some weird ones this week. Just had a really hard time finding value this week. It's probably my smallest card of the year. Michigan 9.5 to cover 9.5 in the first half, minus 118 on FanDuel. This number's come down from 19 this morning to about 17.5. I understand why, but I think first half they get up and then just salt the game away in the second half. So I don't want to take the full game. I will take the 9.5. Yeah, you got to pay a little juice, but I don't mind doing so. I'm actually on the Washington-Oregon State over 62. I think Washington can score on the secondary, and I think Oregon can run on this front 7. Oregon State can run on this front 7. The concern that you have is, Oregon State plays slow, methodical keep away, which I think is probably the case. Or they might try to, but I think they could just get push on the offensive line. And they play better with Corvallis too. So I think there's a little bit of risk with that, but I still really like it. I project this game 65. So give me the over 62 in that one. Tulane FAU under 47.5. Tulane has let some teams hang around recently. So I was tempted to go with the spread pick, but FAU is just not impressive at all, really, on offense. I think Tulane's defense is good enough. So the Tulane offense, that I think something's wrong with it. Don't know what it is. Michael Pratt is, I think, healthy, maybe not 100%. So I just feel better just saying under 47.5. I know it's past 48, which is a pretty key number. I make this game like 45. So I still think there's a little bit of value there. And then Liberty -7 first quarter. You got to play a little bit of juice there, -120 on ESPN Bet, which was released this week. I don't know. I just don't like this UMass team at all. I know that money's coming in on UMass, and I understand why money's coming in on UMass for the full game. But I think this might be another situation like this Michigan game where Liberty gets up early and then plays keep away for the rest of the game, not trying to like do too much because Liberty is undefeated. So they're not going to probably take chances. I think their defense is good enough to stifle this UMass offense. Last time we saw UMass playing the FBS team, they ran all over Army. I think Liberty's much better suited to handle this UMass team.
Now, you can let us know in the chat what plays you're making today. I would love to know that and whether or not you agree with Chris and Nick's picks. Nick, you made me a little bit nostalgic talking about the game next week. So it made me remember about that 2006 game of 1 versus 2, Ohio State versus Michigan. Just some interesting stat lines in this game. Mario Manningham, 6 for 86 in that game. How about this one? Chris Wells, Beanie Wells, 5 for 56 in that game. Troy Smith, who would go on to win the Heisman Trophy, 29 for 41, 316 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. One of those touchdowns going to Ted Ginn Jr., one of them going to Anthony Gonzalez. And here's a good one, a good stat line. Brian Hartline, the offensive coordinator for Ohio State now, 3 for 21 in that game in 2006. That was 1 year removed from high school, 1 year there at Grand Valley. All right. I think we're ready to get to.
Can I add one more number real quick that I didn't get? It's not released yet, so you're gonna have to wait for it to come out. But if Montana State is favored by less than 6, I'm taking Montana State.
Which is it, Montana or Montana State's that has that coach with all the sayings? Which one?
That's Montana Tech. That's the NAIA Montana Tech Diggers, who unfortunately came up short and are not in the NAIA playoffs this year. But
what's that coach's name again?
Bob Green.
Bob Green.
Yeah, Bob Green. Hungrier than a ham. Yeah. All the sayings. All right, let's go to the game. We can bring Barnabas up now because Barnabas will tell us which from an NFL draft perspective, who we should be watching. I want to start here with Louisville at Miami. Number 10, Louisville at Miami. It's a pick'em, 12 Eastern. I know I'm here in Louisville, so I'm hoping that next week's game against Kentucky is live. So I'm hoping that Louisville gets this one. Miami, I'm guessing that they're starting Tyler Van Dyke today because Emory Williams went down with the painful injury last week. Nick, how do you see this one playing out?
So this is one where I don't feel great about what the projections are saying. Been a little too high on Miami as usual. That's been a multi-year problem. Tyler Van Dyke did not look good. Obviously last week when he came in cold and late in the fourth quarter after that Emory Williams injury. My confidence is definitely shaken in him and in Miami to be able to make the most of what looks like on paper a pretty significant talent edge. But Louisville, if they win, they're in the ACC championship game. So obviously everything to play for. I do have Miami as a favorite, as about a field goal favorite, but my level of confidence is not high in this one.
Chris, who do you like in this one?
I like Louisville. Tyler Van Dyke's still banged up. He got benched last week, I think. To be honest, I don't think it was all injury. I think they wanted to look elsewhere. I just don't like the vibes, and I mean, I've heard everybody talk about this on their podcast this week or shows this week. How many people you think are at this Miami game? 10,000? Maybe, if we're lucky. Less. Yeah, I like Louisville. Louisville's playing some seriously good football. All credit to Brom and what's defense coordinator name? I don't know. I can't remember it right now, but he's been an awesome hire too. And the secondary is I think probably a very good unit and one of the better units Miami's playing. So I like Louisville.
I'm going to go with the homer pick and take Louisville also. They're just playing for more than what Miami is playing for right now. Barnabas, from an NFL draft perspective, who are you taking a look at?
Yeah, so if Miami's going to have any shot against Louisville, it's going to be because of their defense, right? They have 5-star talent all over the place there. Cam Kinchins is one of the top 3 safeties coming off the board in the draft. I'm looking at Leonard Taylor III, the nose tackle for Miami, going up against Brian Hudson, the Louisville center. Brian Hudson, he's a transferred graduate, like 5th-year senior, I think. So he's, I don't know that he's necessarily going to be a top 5 center or anything. But if Miami's going to have any chance of slowing down Louisville, it's going to be to, slow down Jawar Jordan, first of all, and then try to stop the pass game because you have Cam Kinchins on the back end. And Leonard Taylor was Dane Brugler's preseason #1 defensive tackle. He doesn't even look like a 300-pound guy, but he's listed at 305, and he lines up right up against the center, and he's 3rd, I think, on the team on tackles, which is not usually a high tackle, volume tackle position. So that tells you what Leonard Taylor is able to do there, and he's regularly drawing double teams. So if they're going to stop the run, it's going to be Leonard Taylor.
All right, there we go. If you're going to watch this Miami game, speaking of that defense, Ruben Baines Jr. is a true freshman. He had 6.5 sacks, 6'3", 275. I believe he was a 5-star defensive lineman, but he is playing excellent football for Miami, providing that pass rush. Mario Cristobal wanted to get a certain type of player into that program. I think Ruben Baines kind of signifies what it is that he wants. And he kind of reminds me of the different type of player, but he reminds me of the way that Will Anderson started his career at Alabama. Ruben Baines having that type of impact as a freshman. All right, let's move over here now to Georgia, favored by 9.5 on the road. On the road at Tennessee. Nick, who do you like in this
one? So I've been in, as far as numbers go, a very similar situation with Georgia for a little bit, where my numbers obviously have Georgia favored as a pretty significant favorite, but can't quite get to what the odds makers in the market have. That was the case earlier in the week when it was 10.5. It's come down a bit. All 3 of my projections have Georgia favored by between 8.5 and 9.5, so not a lot of value there. But did fall on, Tennessee officially, and I don't really trust it. I mean, Georgia looked beatable a few weeks ago, or I should say maybe a month ago, and over the last 3 weeks, really have started to look more and more like that unbeatable national champion, back-to-back championship program that we've seen. So I absolutely could see Georgia winning this one by 2 touchdowns or more. But with Tennessee being, a talented team, senior day, or maybe it's not, I don't know where they play next week, but at home, huge crowd, rivalry game, could be close, but I think Georgia probably should win this one by double digits.
I agree. I think Georgia 9.5 is a great bet, to be honest, too. I just don't know where Tennessee's going to get their points from. That's the concern. I know Georgia's going to score. I have no doubt that Georgia's putting up probably 35, 42 points today. Can Tennessee get there? I don't think so. They look terrible against Missouri.
Chris, is Georgia's offense better than their defense this year? Are they
efficiency wise? Probably. Player wise, no. They're just really efficient, and I mean, the scheme is fine. But I like Georgia today.
Barnabas, what are you? Tell us the matchup or matchups you're paying attention to today in this one.
Yeah, so a couple injury notes here. Jamon Dumas Johnson doubtful for this game. So is interior lineman Andre Karich for Tennessee, and left tackle John Campbell Jr. is probable. So we had a couple injuries on this. So I'm taking the matchup between Shmuel Mondin, the linebacker for Georgia, versus Tennessee running backs. I remember, was it late spring, maybe in the summer, on a Devi debate episode. I tweeted about this earlier, but I was told I was wrong for saying that Josh Heupel can't support a true fantasy number one running back. And look at that, we have a three-headed monster over in Tennessee. So RB1 has never had more than 45% of their touches anyway. But yeah, if I think Tennessee needs to slow this game down if they want to limit how many points Georgia's going to score, considering how efficient they are. And so the only way to do that is to pound these running backs. And they have a chance with Dumas Johnson out, probably out. But, they're still a 5-star defensive talent at pretty much every single position. So, we'll see.
All right, let's try to run through these quickly. Utah, number 22, Utah at Arizona. Arizona favored by 1. Nick, how do you see this one?
So I've got Arizona favored, but by less than 1. So this really don't see an edge here. My biggest question is I don't know which Utah team we're going to see. They're a different team on the road than they are at home, and just the injury situation. But do have Arizona as a very, very, very slight favorite.
I like the Wildcats today. I think they could score, and I'm not sure Utah can. This Arizona defense is pretty good.
Give me Arizona also. Barnabas, what are you looking for in this game?
Whenever you're watching Arizona, there's only one real draftable player you need to watch this year. It's Jordan Morgan, their left tackle. He's more of a mover than like a bruiser, power, like pancake type guy, but he moves well. Wish he bent a little bit better. He's going up against Jonah Ellis, who leads Utah in sacks. I did a double take because he has 8.5 more sacks than the next highest sack number at Utah. I don't think he's a high draft pick. He might sneak in towards the end, and I don't think he's coming out this year probably. But he has 12 sacks on the season for Utah on what is generally a good defense. And so this is just the guy that Jordan Morgan's going to shut down this week.
I think Connor O'Toole, a favorite wide receiver tight end prospect of mine back in like 2020, who is now playing defensive end there for Utah. I'm pretty sure he has a few sacks on the season. Let's go here to number 5. Okay, remember, number 5 Washington at Oregon State today. Go ahead and download the BetterCast app to join the trivia and chat with fans and watching that game today at 7:30. You can download the app now. Oregon State favored by 1. Nick, how do you see this one today?
So I've got Washington as an outright favorite. And when we released it on the Campus to Canton Discord earlier this week, we do that on Tuesday each week. It was 2.5. So seems like some other smart, influential folks are on the same side. But I've got Washington favored by between a field goal and nearly a touchdown in the Talent Edge projection. So very, very tough place to play, but do think there's a good chance Washington can find a way to win.
Chris?
I like Washington in a shootout.
Barnabas, what are you looking for?
Yeah, so Washington's defensive ends have been getting a little bit of hype recently. ZTF and Braylon Trice. They're going up against left tackle Joshua Gray, who probably slides inside at the next level. But the left tackle for Oregon State is pretty good, so let's watch that. I also am just looking at the safety pair for Oregon State, Akili Arnold and Kaiton Oladapo. They're going up against a good play caller in Haley Moore, so excited to see that.
Good luck in your playoff matchups. We will be with you next week. Have a good Saturday, everybody. Peace.